When a standard AI agent finishes a task, its short-term memory is wiped clean. You spend hours teaching it the nuances of your code base or the specific style of your writing, and the moment that session ends, all of that context simply vanishes into thin air. AgentiBrain solves this amnesia by giving your AI fleet a permanent, self-contained memory, and it accomplishes this by directly mapping its file directories to the physical architecture of the human brain. The goal here is complete autonomy. There are no external vector databases to wire up, and no human operators needed to organize the files. You drop this system onto your machine, and it immediately begins building a shared memory for every agent working on your network. By structuring data across these specific biological zones, the system creates a continuous, evolving mind for an entire robotic workforce. To build that mind, information first has to enter the system. Everything starts right here at the raw inbox, essentially a docking bay where agents drop off their completed work. Information arrives through two main paths. The first is deliberate ingestion. If an agent finishes a massive research document or maps out a complex system architecture, it packages that file and ships it straight to the inbox for preservation. The second path happens dynamically while the agents are working. If an agent solves a tough bug or makes a critical architectural decision, it drops a small HTML comment, an inflow marker like @lesson or @signal, directly into its output. These atomic notes are scraped and sent to the inbox automatically. Once the data is in the inbox, an automated system scans the tags and routes the files. Highly systematic code and bug fixes are pushed to the left hemisphere in cool teal, while strategy and creative ideas are routed to the right hemisphere in warm amber. But sorting files into folders doesn't create a real memory. Without a clear timeline showing how one idea led to the next, you just have a well-organized filing cabinet. Look at how the system solves that problem. It doesn't think in isolated files. It mines the transcripts of different agents working on the same problem and stitches them together into narrative units. These chronological blocks of focused work are called arcs. Most arcs flow through the standard intake process, but when the system creates an arc and detects extreme behavior, either massive failures or massive successes, it bypasses the normal routing and sends that data to the primal centers of the brain. If an agent session is flooded with errors, the arc is immediately thrown into the amygdala. This acts as the brain's threat detection center, loudly flagging the failure so the rest of the system knows something is broken. Conversely, if an agent uses a high number of joy markers, indicating things went perfectly, the arc is routed to the pineal gland. The system tracks these breakthroughs in a celebratory purple zone to ensure successful workflows are documented. By clustering related sessions into narrative arcs and isolating the extreme wins and losses, the system filters out the noise. It turns thousands of lines of raw chat logs into clean, structured units of experience. This thermometer gauge calculates what the system calls heat. The heat engine scores every single arc based on how recently it was touched, how many tools the agents used, and how many active sessions are referencing it. This math tells the fleet exactly what information is most important right now. When an arc hits a heat score of 5 or higher, it is immediately promoted to the frontal lobe's conscious zone. This is the glowing blue command center. Any arc sitting here is actively injected into the working memory of every agent on the network. As agents finish that task and move on, the arc begins to cool. Once the heat score drops below 3, the arc is demoted to the unconscious archives of the frontal lobe. The information is still entirely searchable, but it stops demanding the fleet's active attention. If an arc sits in the cold for 14 days, it graduates. It moves out of working memory completely and is filed away into the vast permanent libraries of the left or right hemisphere. Connecting those two libraries is the bridge, the corpus callosum. This metallic silver zone holds the cross-cutting documents that synthesize technical execution with creative strategy, ensuring the two hemispheres stay aligned. Through this heat system, the brain autonomously manages its own attention. It lets old, unused information fade into the background, while keeping the most critical, active workflows front and center. This web graph shows us that these long-term memories don't sit in isolation. When one piece of work enables another, the system draws a concrete line between them, an edge, labeling them as parent, child, or sibling. Maintaining a web this complex usually requires a human database administrator, constantly running queries, pruning dead links, and merging duplicate files. AgentiBrain does this through the tick. Every 2 hours, a background maintenance loop wakes up and autonomously sweeps through the entire vault to recompute heat scores, promote files, and draw new connecting edges. The tick operates on a strict split. 80% of the work is handled by lightning-fast deterministic code that physically moves the files. The remaining 20% uses AI to read the transcripts, understand operator intent, and map out the complex relationships between new arcs. Because this 2-hour heartbeat runs locally and relies heavily on hard-coded logic, the vault remains clean, linked, and active, even if the human operator walks away completely. All of this sorting, scoring, and linking produces one final output: the brain feed. This is a priority-ordered text file injected into the prompt of every single agent every time they boot up. If an agent exposes an API key or breaks a critical database table, the amygdala pushes a priority 100 alert to the brain feed.
Within seconds, every robot in the entire fleet looks up, sees the red flag, and knows the system is on fire. But when an agent creates a highly successful workflow that hits the frontal lobe, that template gets pushed to the brain feed too. Now, if another agent encounters a similar problem, it instantly reads the successful workflow and applies it without you having to teach it twice. AgentiBrain acts as the PA system for your digital factory. By curating a shared attention economy based on heat, biology, and autonomous maintenance, it gives your entire robotic workforce a singular mind, and it never forgets a thing.